Part 3, I froze for a second. This was the first time I had ever seen Chris show this kind of spine. When my niece was born, Megan's hysterical screaming had delayed Chris from signing the forms, costing the baby precious time. If Chris had been able to sign off immediately, my niece might never have needed the NICU in the first place. Thinking back to my past life, none of this had happened. After she was born, my niece, like any normal baby, was observed for a few days and then sent to the regular maternity ward with her mother. In this life, Megan's unhinged tantrums had robbed her daughter of the optimal surgical window, forcing her to suffer needlessly in the NICU. The surgeons finally finished. I thought both mother and child were safe now, but Megan was still relentlessly causing a scene, wailing that her incision meant she could never have a boy. It was absolute insanity. Who was forcing her to have a son anyway? My mother wiped her tears and snapped angrily. Our family has never cared about having boys over girls. We raised you and your brother exactly the same. What the hell is wrong with her? If she wants a boy so badly, she should focus on taking care of my granddaughter first. She's only been alive for a few days, and look at her. Has she had a single good day yet? Chris immediately backed her up. The baby was finally getting better. I didn't want to argue with her because she just gave birth, but today she pulled this psycho stunt and sent our baby right back into the OR. She's so tiny, and she just threw her onto the freezing floor. I want to rip her to shreds. I quietly watched my furious brother. I realized he wasn't perpetually weak. He didn't always just want to keep the peace. When it came to his absolute bottom line, he could stand up and fight. So, in my past life when I was murdered by Megan, and he chose to swallow his anger and stay silent, was it simply because I wasn't someone he truly cared about? Thinking about that, a chill settled deep in my heart. Even though since being reborn, I kept telling myself that Megan was my only true enemy, and I shouldn't blame anyone else. Looking at my mother and brother now, I still felt a profound sense of disappointment and sorrow. Now I finally understood. Some relatives are just that, relatives. There was no need for me to give them my whole heart. In this life, I didn't risk everything to protect your daughter, and in the last life, you never treated me as a family member worth fighting for. I guess you could call that a mutual betrayal. In that moment, I felt a heavy burden lift from my shoulders. Looking at Chris, I no longer felt a single ounce of guilt. My first responsibility was to myself, not to them. Numerous patients and families who had been watching the spectacle had seen with their own eyes how Dr. Evans pushed Megan, leading to my niece being crushed. Combined with Megan's earlier screaming accusations against her, within a single day, the hospital was swarming with rumours about the chief of obstetrics. To be fair, Dr. Evans' surgical choices for Megan were medically flawless. But her long history of playing favourites and bullying subordinates had earned her a lot of quiet resentment. When the public misunderstood the situation, naturally, no one stepped up to defend her. To suppress the PR nightmare, the hospital administration had no choice but to suspend her pending investigation. The resentment that had been building up against her for years was finally validated. My niece was wheeled back into the NICU, covered in tubes and wires once again. Looking through the glass, I momentarily hallucinated the close, loving bond we shared in my past life. My niece looked a lot like me, and I was the one who personally delivered her. There was a time when I treated her like my own daughter. That was why I had zero defences against her, giving her the perfect opportunity to strike at me and my unborn child. As I lay dying on the floor, I exhausted my very last ounce of strength, tighting to reach her hand, begging her to call 911, yet she only stared at me with cold, venomous eyes. Enunciating every single word, she expressed her pure hatred and curses toward me. Drenched in cold sweat, I tried with everything I had to explain to her. But I saved your life. Without me, you wouldn't have even made it into this world alive. She just slowly shook her head and whispered softly, "That's impossible." Mom said, "You were just exaggerating to make yourself look like a hero. I would have been born safely no matter what. You just used that to blackmail us, to force us to be grateful to you." I gave her my whole heart, and she believed I was only scheming for a return on investment. After being reborn, I occasionally felt a flicker of sympathy for her current suffering. But every time that feeling surfaced, I reminded myself not to betray the life I lost. This child was not worth another ounce of my effort. Didn't you say you would grow up safe and sound no matter what? Then good luck to you. I wouldn't interfere with anyone's fate anymore, because this was their own karma. The most I could do was simply not actively seek revenge against her. Meanwhile, Megan's incision had ruptured because the tearing was so extensive. She had to be completely resutured. After the procedure, Megan became even more unhinged. She screamed in her hospital room, demanding massive financial compensation from the hospital. After yelling for a while and realizing no one was paying attention to her, she grew furious and launched an attack on Chris. Your wife and daughter are being bullied like this, and you don't even have the guts to say a single word? Chris finally lifted his head. Staring at her with dead eyes, he said, "To this second, I still don't understand. Why did you take the baby to the director's office? What did you think that would accomplish? Did you think throwing a tantrum would magically make your scar horizontal?" Megan's eyes widened in disbelief. "You don't get it." It was to maximize the exposure. I need everyone to know that it was the doctors at this hospital who forced a vertical cut on me. If I really can't have a son in the future, they have to pay me. No, wait, they have to pay me right now. Didn't you say that useless little thing is back in the ICU? They have to cover all her medical bills. We are not taking a loss on this. Before she even finished her sentence, Chris finally snapped. Son. Can you shut the fuck up about having a son? Megan was stunned into silence. Since they got married, she had always controlled Chris. She never imagined he would ever fight back. Who exactly is holding a gun to your head, forcing you to have a son? I seriously don't understand. All we wanted was a healthy baby, and you have harmed your own child over and over again. Go outside and ask anyone with a brain. Do you realize how insane your logic is? Everyone knows the gender of a baby is determined by chromosomes, not by what direction a damn scar goes. Megan, I absolutely cannot take this anymore. I am divorcing you. Megan froze in place. You're divorcing me? Fine, you can have the kid. I don't trust you with her anyway. Give me the kid, and you can take whatever else you want. This isn't a family anymore. I only want my daughter. You can go do whatever the hell you want. After saying that, Chris turned around and walked out in dead silence. Watching his exhausted, slumped back, I realized he had aged years in just the past few days. He was completely broken, both physically and mentally. Megan finally snapped out of her shock. Screaming at Chris's retreating back, she howled. You're burning the bridge after crossing the river. Chris, I suffered to give you a child. I walked through the gates of hell for you. You ungrateful V-stard. You want a divorce? I will never let you get away with this. My mother was already completely numb. She had lost all hope in Megan. Her only concern now was her granddaughter, whose life still hung in the balance. She hurriedly followed Chris out the door. I looked at Megan, who only knew how to bluff and scream, and felt a deep, chilling sorrow in my heart. Why is it that the person with the most vicious hostility toward women is often another woman? Even when that person was the daughter she had just risked her life to bring into the world, she didn't have a single shred of maternal pity for her. Feeling humiliated, Megan righted her venomous glare straight at me. I did all of this so the Sue family could have a male heir to carry on the name. And this is how you treat me? You will all burn in hell for this. No, I replied calmly. You didn't do this for the Sue family. You did this for yourself. You did it to satisfy your own toxic obsession with having a son, or maybe just to find an excuse for your own failures. Because deep down you despise women. You believe that without a man to validate you, a woman has no right to exist in this world. That's why you're so desperate to have a son, to prove your own worth. But Megan, children are born to be loved. Their worth isn't dictated by their gender. Our only job is to give them unconditional love and protection. Not use them as tools to satisfy your own twisted ego. Megan opened her mouth to argue, but I had already turned around and walked away. There was no reasoning with someone like her. She had been completely brainwashed by a patriarchal society. In her own mind, she had no agency, no identity of her own. She didn't even deserve the title of a mother. Because of Megan's own reckless behaviour, her postpartum recovery was completely botched. Her incision site remained in agonising pain. According to the nurses doing rounds, they could constantly hear her muffled, agonising groans deep into the night. The postpartum recovery period is critical. If handled poorly, it can lead to a cascade of chronic gynecological issues. Clearly, Megan, due to her sheer ignorance and violent outbursts, did not escape that fate. On the day she was discharged, I caught a glimpse of her from a distance. Her hair was falling out in clumps, so greasy it was hard to look at. Her face was covered in dark spots, and deep wrinkles had formed around her eyes. She looked incredibly haggard, perhaps because her incision still hurt. She walked with a severe, trembling limp. Her vertical incision was already notoriously slow to heal, not to mention she had to have it violently ripped open and resutured. That pain was going to haunt her for a very long time. According to the nurse who changed her dressings, the skin on her abdomen had turned entirely purple. It was so loose and saggy it was hard to look at. Her internal organs hadn't fully settled back into place. So it looked like a layer of skin draped over a lump of flesh, sliding around in her abdomen. In my past life, my mother cared for Megan with meticulous attention. My niece grew up perfectly healthy. Everyone's focus and love were centered entirely on Megan. Her postpartum recovery was incredibly comfortable, and she healed extremely fast. So this was the fate she actually deserved. After being discharged, Megan returned to Chris's apartment. Meanwhile, Chris stayed at the hospital day and night, watching over my niece, who had just barely survived the critical window. During all those days, Megan never once showed any concern or guilt regarding her niece. She didn't even bother to visit her own daughter. But the day Chris finally brought my niece home, Megan suddenly snapped. "You've been ignoring me all these days, and it was all just to take care of this little brat? Do you even care about me as your wife anymore? Don't forget, without me, she wouldn't even exist." Chris just looked at her with dead eyes. He handed the baby to my mother to take into the bedroom to rest. Then he pulled out a set of divorce papers. "You're right, I don't care about you anymore. A wife and mother like you isn't worth my time. Read this agreement. If you don't have any objections, sign it." Megan's eyes nearly bulged out of her head. "You're throwing away your wife over that daughter?" Chris replied with ice-cold calm. "Yes, giving birth to her wasn't easy for you. In the future, if you want to see her, I won't stop you." Before he could even finish, Megan lunged off the bed and slapped Chris across the face as hard as she could. "I refuse to get a divorce. I'll die before I divorce you. Chris, you can drop dead." Chris simply shook his head, refusing to argue with her. He turned and walked out the door. From that day on, Chris subjected Megan to a total, long-term freeze-out. No matter what Megan said, if it didn't involve their niece, he acted like he couldn't hear her. Even living under the same roof, Megan wouldn't even see him for days at a time. Once he found a suitable rental property, Chris packed up my niece and my mother and moved out immediately, leaving Megan entirely alone in that apartment. Furious and completely helpless, I knew Chris's plan. Once the breastfeeding period ended, he was guaranteed to win full custody of my niece. If they lived apart for over a year, the courts would automatically grant the divorce anyway. After this cascading series of disasters, unable to see her daughter, her body ruined, and her marriage destroyed, Megan finally developed severe manic depression. She actually started live streaming, recounting her tragic experiences, trying to farm sympathy from the internet. "I risked my life to give birth to my child, and I still haven't even seen her. She was put in the NICU the moment she was born. Then her dad took her away from me. I haven't even had the chance to look at my own daughter. My sister-in-law is literally an OB-GYN, but she refused to do my surgery when I needed her. She put me in critical danger. I almost died. When I tried to hold the hospital accountable, she conspired with them to silence me. I went through hell to give birth, and my husband and mother-in-law kicked me out of the house. They are forcing me to get a divorce." How is a woman still recovering from childbirth supposed to survive this kind of abuse? Everyone knows C-sections are supposed to be horizontal now. But my doctor ignored my objections and forced a vertical cut on me. My recovery has been ruined. My incision ripped open multiple times. I suffered all of this for nothing. Her speeches ignited a massive firestorm online, riding the hashtag of thousands of heartbroken mothers. Megan went wildly viral on social media. Countless mothers who saw her story expressed deep sympathy. They launched a vicious, coordinated attack against our hospital and our entire family. My personal information and Chris's details were doxed and spread everywhere online. Dr. Evans, who was already suspended, was dragged back into the crossfire. To perform damage control and cut ties with the controversy, the hospital officially fired Dr. Evans. When the hospital's response failed to meet her demands, Megan's behaviour became even more extreme. She sat in front of her webcam every day, looking dishevelled and unhinged, repeating her tragic backstory over and over like a broken record. Chris's patience was completely gone. He tried to negotiate with her to sign the divorce papers multiple times, but every time she leaked their private conversations online. As a result, Chris was subjected to brutal cyberbullying. The internet furiously condemned him, calling him a cold-blooded monster. They said he ignored his wife's suffering and was desperate to divorce her the second the baby was born. They demanded that a man like him be punished. It was definitely the sister-in-law and the husband working together. One conspired with the doctors to butcher her surgery, and the other stole her baby when she was too weak to fight back. Kicking someone when they are down like this is absolute psychopathic behavior. A doctor with no medical ethics should have her license revoked immediately. If you only wanted a baby, why did you even get married? Are you just going to leave your wife to die now that the kid is born? The public outrage threatened to drown Chris alive. My mother sat at home weeping silently, her eyes red and swollen. Under Megan's relentless pressure, Chris was on the verge of a total breakdown. His job was hanging by a thread. His newborn daughter cried day and night. He suffered from severe insomnia while enduring the public's hatred. He couldn't even go to the grocery store without being harassed and insulted. Out of options, he came to me for help. Looking at his hair, which had started to grey from the extreme stress, I said calmly, "She's live streaming. You can live stream too. Even a cornered rabbit will bite, especially when she has absolutely no leg to stand on." Chris just mumbled to himself, "She is still the mother of my child. Why does it have to get this ugly? When she weaponized the internet to destroy you, did she care that you were the father of her child? Are you really going to wait until she destroys your entire life before you finally fight back?" Chris couldn't do it, but I decided it was time to drop the hammer. The mob mentality Megan had whipped up was massive enough now. It was big enough that when the backlash hit, it would obliterate her completely. Plus, my own career was on the line. That night, I went live. I presented a flawless ironclad chain of evidence documenting exactly what happened on the day of Megan's delivery, her subsequent psychotic behavior, and her premeditated extortion of the hospital. I posted it all in the comments for everyone to see. Megan has seen her daughter. She just never gave a damn about her. And my niece's critical condition was caused entirely by Megan's own medical negligence. When I displayed the security footage of Megan carelessly dumping her fragile newborn niece onto the freezing hospital tiles, the live stream chat exploded. The mothers who had been fiercely defending Megan might not understand medical procedures, and they didn't care about horizontal versus vertical incisions. They were just defending a poor victimized mother who had her baby stolen. But what if that mother didn't give a single damn about her own child? The narrative flipped instantly. The vitriol they had hurled at me before was now redirected at Megan with tenfold ferocity. She was branded a toxic venomous snake. The absolute worst kind of human garbage. Using your own baby as a prop? How does someone like that even have the nerve to breathe? She doesn't deserve to be called a mother. Furious comments flooded the screen. That poor baby. Unwanted from the second she was born, and then used and exploited by her own biological mother. What's even more sickening is that the only reason she threw this massive fit is because she was obsessed with having a son, so she physically stopped the doctors from saving her baby. This toxic obsession with male heirs is repulsive. Can someone like this just rot in a cell? Under the crushing weight of the public backlash, Megan's mental defenses completely shattered. She went live several times just to scream and curse at the viewers. Ultimately, her account was permanently banned by the platform. Her only source of income, her live stream, was gone. She spent her days screaming curses outside Chris's apartment complex. After being reported by the neighbours for disturbing the peace, she was arrested and hauled away by the police. Already suffering from postpartum depression and severe manic episodes, Megan had now completely lost her grip on reality. I never imagined that Megan would actually try to take her own daughter down with her. After getting a frantic call from Chris, I rushed to their old apartment building. Megan was standing on the edge of the roof, clutching my niece. My niece was screaming so hard her voice was hoarse. "Chris, you wanted this kid so badly, right? I'm going to make sure you get nothing. I'm going to make you lose the most precious thing in your life." Down on the ground. Chris's voice was completely shredded from screaming. "Megan, as long as you let the baby go, I will agree to whatever you want. I am begging you. Bring the baby down." It turned out, while Chris was at work and my mom was home alone, Megan had violently broken into the apartment and snatched the baby. In the process, she shoved my mother hard to the floor. My mother fractured her hip. Unable to chase after her, she could only drag herself to the phone to call Chris. Right now. My mother had just been loaded into an ambulance for emergency trauma care. Looking up at the completely unhinged Megan, I knew threatening her was useless. I grabbed a police megaphone and shouted up at her, "Megan, what exactly are your demands?" "You just don't want a divorce, right? I promise you, as long as you put the baby down." "My brother will not divorce you," Megan thrashed wildly on the ledge. "I just want you all to suffer. Your family ruined my life. I want you all to burn in hell with me." She didn't care about the divorce anymore, just like she refused to agree to the divorce when Chris offered her everything they owned. Right now, she just wanted to drag us all down to death with her. And she was using the baby to force our hand. Chris was so terrified and furious. He was completely incoherent. The police decided to bring me up to the roof to negotiate with Megan. Megan clutched the baby to her chest with a death grip, refusing to let us take a single step closer. I forced myself to speak in the calmest, most soothing tone possible. "Megan, do you know something? None of this was supposed to happen. You were supposed to have a beautiful, happy family. Your daughter was supposed to be born perfectly healthy. Your mother-in-law was supposed to take care of your every need. Your husband was supposed to adore you. Even I was supposed to treat you like my actual sister." Megan looked at me in total confusion. "What the hell kind of garbage are you talking about?" I smiled bitterly. "Garbage? No. In my past life you were exactly that happy. But the facts prove that you never deserved to be happy." Standing against the howling wind on the rooftop, I slowly recounted everything that happened in my past life to her, watching Megan look as if she had been struck by lightning. I took a slow, deliberate step toward her. "If you hadn't stopped the doctors, your baby wouldn't have had to suffer. If you hadn't thrown that massive fit at the hospital, my brother wouldn't have divorced you. Every single bit of this is the karma you brought upon yourself." Megan snapped back to reality. "I don't believe you. That's impossible. Why would your family ever be that good to me? I didn't give you a son. Why would you be good to me?" She looked down at her daughter with profound tragedy. She had grown up in an environment poisoned by gender bias, and treating a son as the ultimate prize had become her absolute obsession. She forgot that she was a woman herself. She should have been fighting for her own worth, instead of absorbing the brainwashing of a patriarchal society and turning herself into a hideous, unrecognizable monster. Shaking her head in sheer disbelief, she took a step backward, preparing to jump, with lightning-fast reflexes. I lunged forward and snatched my niece out of her arms, pulling her tight to my chest. The momentum threw Megan off balance, and she tumbled off the high-rise. I watched with my own eyes as she was swallowed by the sheer drop, crashing violently into the safety netting set up by the fire department below. The paramedics immediately loaded her into an ambulance. Holding my niece, I stood frozen, unable to process what just happened for a long time. Ultimately, Megan suffered a severe spinal cord injury, leaving her paralyzed from the chest down. She would spend the rest of her life trapped in a hospital bed, fully conscious of her own ruin. Chris finally finalized the divorce. He immediately took my niece and my mother and moved entirely out of the state, starting over in a place where no one knew them. For him, this city held nothing but nightmares. I successfully took over Dr. Evans' position, becoming the youngest chief of obstetrics in the hospital's history. It turns out, when I refused to involve myself in Megan's life, my own life became incredibly brilliant. After finishing my shift, I was stunned to find my husband waiting for me. He had gotten leave from his deployment. I threw myself into his arms with pure joy. I had one more piece of good news to tell him. I hope that in this life, I can safely deliver the child growing inside me and spend a long, happy life with the family I love.